to another segment of my YouTube channel. I'm so happy, actually I'm always happy when I do these videos, having these conversations with some powerful people here in the Turks and Caicos Islands and also internationally. Today I am excited to have Mr. Mario Rigby, and I'd like for him to introduce himself. Of course, most people might know him already, but still, I would like him to introduce himself on my YouTube channel. Mario, thank you for agreeing to be on my YouTube channel. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
introduce yourself.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Mario Rigby. I am an eco-explorer. So I travel around the world and I look for expeditions with meaning and purpose. And I just completed the Turks and Caicos Challenge, which has made me the first person to actually traverse the entire length of the Turks and Caicos Islands using human-powered activities.
Awesome. I think the entire Turks and Caicos was excited with that Caicos Challenge. Tell us more about that. How long did it take you to explore, do this exploration on the Turks and Caicos Challenge?
So originally it took me, it was estimated that it would take 7 days, and we were able to manage to do it in 5 days. So we knocked off a few days, a few hours, because I essentially just wanted to power through the entire expedition, which, I guess we'll talk about in details how it went through from beginning to end.
Yes. And of course the Turks and Caicos, I think, what, 166 square miles, I think?
Yeah, I know it in kilometers, so it was 265 kilometers.
And so you started from Grand Turk?
So I started in Salt Key, kayaked over to Grand Turk, and so that was around 22 kilometers, roughly about 10 miles. And then from there, continued from Grand Turk over to South Caicos, which was the expedition part that a lot of people had actually ridden me off and said, there's no way that you're going to be able to do it. No one ever has done it before.
Because of the ocean?
Because of and it's really turbulent ocean, right? So, massive waves. It's about 7,000 meters deep. So we're talking like almost like more than a mile deep.
Whoa.
Of oceanic water. And it's essentially the part that separates the Turks and the Caicos Islands.
Yes. And then from South Caicos you went to East?
Yeah, and then from South Caicos, managed to swim and paddle across to East Caicos. And East Caicos was actually the most difficult part of the expedition, the most really? Difficult leg, yeah. I underestimated it tremendously. It took me 13 and a half hours to complete East Caicos. And the reason for that is because we had made a miscalculation on one of the bends of the islands. So we thought it was like 3 river crossings, but or channel crossings. It was actually 4 channel crossings, and one of them was an extra 12 or 7 miles long. So that really devastated me because I arrived by that time I had arrived by 10:30. That's when I completed that expedition. So I was essentially
10:30 p.m.
p.m. Yeah. So I finished that leg of the expedition during the nighttime with no moon, no light, and imagine trying to cross channels at nighttime when you can't see anything. So you're essentially guessing when you're swimming for about 5 minutes across the channel, and you're hoping that you would make it to the other side.
Especially on an uninhabited island.
Yeah, exactly, on an uninhabited island, yeah.
Wow. And then from East you went to Middle?
And then from East, the next day, I rode my bike from where we ended, from Middle all the way to North Caicos, and apparently I was close to breaking a record in terms of cycling speed. The Cycling Federation said I was one of the top 5 cyclists who had ridden that part of the leg, and that was without intention, because my intention was to reserve as much energy as possible for, by the time I made it to North Caicos, I had to then swim across to Parakeet, run across Parakeet to Pine Key, and then Pine Key finally to Little Water Key. So, and then the final leg was to go from Little Water Key and then paddle across to Providenciales. And so that alone took also about roughly 13 hours. Wow. That whole day. And so that's a single day.
Wow, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. You can't even get me to walk or swim, you know.
It's wild.
Impressed. I'm impressed. So what inspires you to, to do this type of adventure?
For me, it was more about exploring the Turks and Caicos Islands in a way that nobody else has ever done. I wanted to put Turks and Caicos on a map for adventure tourism, which we know can bring a lot of dollars to the island, and it brings a new frontier to what we are able to do here on the island, and gives youth a lot more opportunities to do more things. And I think it's exciting. I think the world is excited about it. The world is looking for a new platform in which to play, and Turks and Caicos Islands is the perfect place to play. We have the nicest, not just beaches, but oceans, reefs. We have the nicest terrain as well for particularly those kinds of sports. And so what I wanted to do was demonstrate an example of how that could look like.
Well, I'm glad you did it. I'm also glad a Turks and Caicos Islander did it.
Yeah.
Someone else coming here to do it. So
exactly.
I'm glad it was you as a Turks and Caicos Islander.
Thank you.
Exploring our own country.
And there was actually a foreigner who wanted to do it, and he had crossed East Caicos. It took him a couple of days, and I didn't know that before until afterwards. My logistics team told me, you had essentially broken the record of crossing East Caicos the fastest. So there are a lot of records I think we broke about 5 records in a single expedition. So that was a lot of physical challenges on that alone. And then finishing off from Provo, that was probably one of the second hardest day, where I began by running. We did the first 5K, and we actually had a community run where people could join us. 5K from Blue Haven to Turks Kebab, and then from Turks Kebab I continued riding my bike to Split Rock, and then from Split Rock kayak to West Caicos.
And the thing about Turks and Caicos, we're not, for those who are watching this who is not aware, we're multiple islands. We're not like one land mass.
Yes,
you had to cross, as you mentioned, the oceans. At least 7 or 8 islands, and so, which is different from some islands, which is just one land mass.
Absolutely.
So I want to just stress that point for people watching who's not aware of the makeup of the Turks and Caicos Islands. We have over 40 islands in the Keys,
absolutely,
or perhaps more.
Yeah, and those were I wanted to, and it's good that you stressed that, because I wanted to also showcase the different disciplines of all the previous expeditions that I've done in the past, kayaking across all the lakes in Africa and Canada as well. I was able to utilize those skills and bring it here to the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Tell us about the Africa trips. I think I read where you walked almost 12,000 kilometers. Tell us about that experience, and when did this happen?
So it was a walk along the entire length of Africa, which was just over 12,000 kilometers. It took me 2.5 years, and I crossed over 8 countries, and these are massive countries. These aren't not Turks and Caicos countries. These are large bodies of land, and there was also a lot of traversing of unhospitable terrain, deserts. In the White Desert in Sudan, for instance, in Egypt as well, and then the forests and jungles in South Africa, and of course the lakes in Lake Malawi, where I met a lot of indigenous people, and then of course I fell into conflict in Mozambique as well, where I was shot at by rebel soldiers.
Really?
Yeah, guerrilla warfare. It was a really hectic time.
Wow.
But it's real life, and I think we don't have enough real life adventures these days. Everything is apparently superficial, and people living vicariously through people who've done these things in the past. But I feel like every generation we have a new kind of explorer, and the kind of explorer that I am is I wanted to advocate Africa as most realistically as I possibly can. I wanted to show the people who they really are.
Yeah.
And I didn't want the media to dictate what African people are like. I want African people to dictate that. And from what I learned from Africa is actually quite a lot, because in the West here, we learn about the importance of material possession. We value materialism, but over there,
we measure a lot of things by material.
Too much, in fact, and it makes us unhappy. It makes us it's unsettling.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
But from what I learned over there is that they've been so hospitable and so kind to me that I've never felt this kind of love before in my life, from complete strangers. They would, take you into their homes, and I'd be walking, I'm sweating,
without even knowing who you are.
With absolutely not knowing who I am. They would completely take me into their homes with their families, and I just felt this massive amount of love. And that's what I learned in Africa. And I felt like when people go to Africa, it shouldn't be we teach them things. It's the other way around. It's I learn from them, and I want to share that lesson to the rest of the world.
That is awesome. So you mentioned earlier how you shot at. What made you to continue to pursue the adventure despite being facing these obstacles?
It's looking at the bigger picture.
Gotcha.
For me, it's to get shot at and all those different things. Having malaria, I had malaria as well, cerebral malaria, which is the worst kind of malaria you can possibly get. It's the one that affects your brain. And so if within 3 days, if you don't treat it, then you're gonna have brain damage.
Wow.
And what kept me going was I was doing it not just for myself. I was doing it for the generation of more brothers and sisters ahead of me. I was doing it for Africa. I was doing it for exploration, so that people can see explorers not just as the colonial men, but also as African men, as Caribbean men, that there's a diverse field of explorers out there.
Now you mentioned you did it for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
How did that tie into your immigration status in Africa, being there for 2 years?
Well, I had to constantly keep getting new visas.
Okay.
And to me, that was actually one of the most challenging parts of traversing from across borders, because sometimes for instance, if you're going to Ethiopia, you can't go to Somalia or Eritrea, as an example, because these borders are closed for each other, because there's conflict going on, right?
Right.
And so sometimes you have to play some tricky games just to get into the borders.
Now tell us about Canada. You said you kayaked a lot of the lakes in Canada.
Yeah, so Canada is obviously a lot more chill. There aren't any mosquitoes or they're trying to kill you, crocodiles trying to eat you, sharks. There's none of those threats. So for me, Canada is a good place for me to train, to practice, but also such beautiful terrain. I feel incredibly grateful for the fact that I'm able to see parts of Canada that most Canadians themselves have never seen. I can tell you from the West Coast all the way to the East Coast, all the intricate details. I can tell you about how the indigenous people live, and how they're mistreated for the most part. And so you get to see, as an explorer, you get to see these things, and that's why I guess there's that importance for each country to have an explorer themselves, and yeah.
Well, that must be a huge personal sacrifice to spend this time, exploring the world.
Yeah.
Must be a lot of sacrifices.
and when you say sacrifices, what do you mean sacrifices?
You probably could be somewhere else making some money, making a lot of money, but here, you are doing these things, and you're probably not getting much from it.
I'll tell you one thing. Once you do what you love to do, when you find your purpose in life, none of these things matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't. It matters to an extent of like, I need to survive and I need to be able to do those things.
Meet your basic needs.
Exactly. And now I'm at this point in my in my career where I'm actually getting paid quite a bit for it, and I'm and the money's coming in, and you know, I'm not even seeing it. I'm just like, all right, cool, like let me just move on to the next thing. But if your concern is first money and then what it is that you like to do, you'll find yourself upset and unhappy for the rest of your life. I always ask the question, in your deathbed, you know, are you going to regret anything? You know, I asked the children this in the Provo Primary. I just did a talk, and I asked the kids, what would be the number one thing that you regret if, you know, when you're in your deathbed, before you die? And if your answer is regret, then you need to change your life. If your answer is like, you know, well, I wish I talked to this person, I wish I did this experience, I wish I did that, you never have I wish. I don't have a wish in my vocabulary. I never say should, wish, could be, none of these things, because I just do what I love to do.
I think that's a very valid point you just made. You know, you don't live with regrets.
Yes.
And once you find your purpose, money will come.
Yes, absolutely.
Money will come. So I'm glad. I mean, I just raised that point just to provoke thoughts and captivate people's ideas and minds. Because some people think, you know, they're toiling all day and night just trying to make money when they're not even pursuing their real purpose.
Thank you.
You know, so I admire you.
Appreciate that.
What other adventures you did?
So I just did those ones, and since I came back from Africa, I've been doing I do one major expedition every year, and then I do many little things on the side. So right after this expedition, for instance, this is my big expedition for the year.
Okay.
And then just because the body can't take too much of it, so I need recovery time. And then I also use 6 months to plan my next expedition. So it's a constant work. I have a team, and we come together, and we literally, all we do is we dream up what is the most beautiful thing that we could do, and then we just do it. It's like it's the most freedom that you can possibly have as an individual person.
You're very satisfied.
Yeah.
So tell us about. I also read that you are a member of Explorer 50. Yeah, tell us about that. Just the top 50 people.
Yeah, so the Explorers Club is one of the most prestigious clubs in the world for explorers and scientists and researchers around the world doing, like Nat Geo explorers and Discovery Channel and stuff like that. And they had named me top 50 explorer this year. And it's a huge honor to have this, because these guys have been in business before any of us were born, and they originated from New York. And some of the greatest explorers, like astronauts, are part of this club who get these recognitions. And so they recognized me as one of their top 50 explorers, changing the world and paving a new kind of frontier in the explorers world.
Well, I just want to thank you again for this opportunity. I'm just so delighted, because I tried getting on, I think, maybe last year or something like that.
It's better that you got me this year.
But it's better that you now, completed the Caicos Challenge.
Yeah.
So I'm so really grateful for this opportunity.
Thank you.
And you have sent so many positive messages to individuals out there, and I just love it. And I believe that this video will inspire many, many people.
I hope so.
So I'd like to ask you to say some closing remarks, and thank you again.
Thank you, and honestly, it's a privilege, and it's a pleasure to be in this position, to be able to inspire. And so I always take that in deeply with a warm heart, so I appreciate that. And and I guess for closing remarks, I say that I believe I want to push the limits of what is humanly possible. And I come from such a small island with so much talent. We have so much talent here. And what I want to express is that never reserve what you think you need to do. I would say go full out and do what you love to do, and that's what I did, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. And I know that every other individual person who's done great things has also done that. I wouldn't even call it sacrificing, because for me it's not a sacrifice. The sacrifice was not doing this before I had done this. The sacrifice is to not follow your dreams and not to follow your passions, and just keep going forward with it. It's not going to happen overnight, but the beauty is the process, the journey of getting there. And that's my closing remarks, and I hope that reaches a lot of people here in the Turks and Caicos Islands.
Thank you again, Mario. You've been watching my YouTube channel. Please remember to subscribe. Thanks again.
Thank you.
You got it right there. I got it right there, braced up.
Right here is like the best. You want to turn back on and grab it?